Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Bimmer Barn. Today we're going to be pulling the engine out of my 335i E90 as we prepare to put it into my E91 wagon. So let's go ahead and take a look at the cars that we have in front of us today and all the work that we're going to have to do. And before we get into it, I just want to mention it is getting cold down here in Florida, and I'm sure it's getting cold around you too. So be sure to check out the Bimmer Barn store and grab one of our hoodies to help support the channel, as well as keep yourself warm when you're working in the garage. So let's get right to work. Now, if you didn't see in our last episode, we pulled the N54 X-Drive motor drivetrain out of my E91 wagon, and right here we have our 335i with the N54 that we're going to be placing into this car and doing a full rear-wheel drive conversion. Before we get into removing this thing, I did want to show you guys something crazy about this motor that we found while we were pulling it, and that is over on this side. There's a torn boot that we clearly see from one of the CV axles, but just check out how loose this is. And you can see right there that the support for the CV axle itself is actually broken. So I'm not sure how someone was driving this car up until the moment that it finally died, that the alternator went out. But there is just so much wrong with this drivetrain here. You know, we found that the front differential didn't have any fluid in it. A lot of these hoses were just clamped together where they shouldn't have been. So much broken. Just so surprising that this car made it to 190,000 with that sort of mentality. But this car here is pretty healthy. The motor's healthy. We've tested compression on it. Came out 150 across the board. So far, we've replaced injectors, coils, and spark plugs. We should probably invest in Index 12 injectors eventually. But for now, since we got the whole motor running and we got it into boost finally, we know that we can transfer it into the wagon and begin the build process. So similar to this motor over here, we're going to drop it down on some wooden dollies, and then we'll have a better look at the motor, and we'll be able to diagnose where some of the oil leaks are coming from and start ordering parts to service this thing. All right, so now we're pretty close to getting this engine removed, and I figured I'd give you guys a quick update. We got the front end off, as you can see, and we've already worked to get a lot of stuff cleared from the sides of the motor. So things like the expansion tank, the charge pipe, the air filters, some of the heater core hoses that run along the side here. Everything that was connected to the radiator has been disconnected, and this core here we're going to use in the new front end. So the 328i has a front end like this. We'll use this core in that front end because these supports here are cracked and broken. So I think that should work up great. The 325 front end has what looks to be supports for the intercooler, just like this one. So we should be able to convert the other one, use it instead of using this broken 335 front end. So yeah, like I said, the next things kind of been avoiding is doing the bottom side. So the next things we do need to do is remove the shift cable from the transmission, remove the vacuum for the DMTL system, and then also the fuel line, which I think there's a connect down there, so where it goes into the high pressure fuel pump. And then I think we've also got like a ground strap for the motor somewhere. We're gonna have to disconnect that. The oil cooler assembly, it's going to be just retrofitted onto the new car. All we have to do is reuse these, supports here, and I think it should just bolt right up to the frame rail over there. And one thing that I am not looking forward to is the wiring, because after we got the DME and the engine harness disconnected and kind of, separated, we see now how different the connectors are on the 325 versus the 335. So if I have to, we could always pull the entire chassis harness out from the inside of the car under the dashboard and such. But I think that's a little excessive. We're going to try to make things work as easily as possible in the new chassis. So stay tuned for that. We'll probably just have one master video tackling the wiring for this swap, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to find useful. And that'll be one of the big challenges. But anyways, let's get back to work. All right, so now that we've got the 335i exhaust out, I want to show you guys what my plan is as far as making a custom exhaust for the 335i Wagon. Now, under the transmission tunnel, there's this support brace, and both cars have it, the 335 and the Wagon. What I did was I marked on each of the exhaust systems where this brace was. And then you can see we did it on the 328 exhaust as well. And as you can see, they line up pretty closely. We have 2 pipes from each. And what I'm thinking is that if we cut somewhere in the middle underneath this plate, we can kind of stitch together the front end of the 335 exhaust with the rear section of the 325 exhaust. And that way we'll have a single exit on one side of the car. It'll be routed correctly, and it'll be hidden by this support plate right here. So it'll look really OEM, I think. You won't be able to see like my welds or whoever welds this together. And it'll be quiet as well because we're going to have a full muffler, midsection resonator, and we'll have the secondary cats from the 335 exhaust. So all those things together, I think is going to make a really cool exhaust system. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below if you think it's going to be a good setup, if it's going to be nice and sleepery, or, there's always a possibility of going to like a single exit and getting rid of the muffler in the future. But I think I'm going to like it as a more of a quiet car. So let me know what you guys think. All right, so we've now got the N54 motor removed with the transmission. It was kind of a pain to get the drive shaft off because it feels like it had never been removed before. But we got it off, and now the motor is out and free. Just some observations. I noticed that the brake lines are pointed a little bit differently on the iX models. You can see that the hard line is pointed down, and on the rear-wheel drive car, it's actually pointed up. So I'm sure that's because the different spindle axle designs in the front. But, you know, worst case scenario, we can transfer the hard lines because I think it's just going to be the front ones that are different. But best case scenario, we can just, you know, reuse the hard lines from the iX. And these soft lines might be able to connect up without any problem. Looking at the turbos, my suspicions are confirmed. The turbos are dry on top, but the oil seals for the return lines need to be replaced for sure, so we need to get some of those ordered. Over here, the vacuum pump and the high pressure fuel pump, there's like a little bit of oil residue, and I'm thinking it might be one of those seals either for the vacuum pump or for the high pressure. So that's something that we're gonna probably order as well, look into. There's a lot of oil and dirt, grease buildup, especially right here by the motor mount. You see how much dirt has built up over the years. So I do want to pressure wash this entire assembly before it goes back into the car. A lot of the lower oil pan stuff like motor mounts, oil pan gasket, a lot of those things we're not going to be able to service while the motor is in this position, obviously, because, you know, it's on the ground. I don't have an engine hoist in here. But this might be a good opportunity to take the transmission off and service the rear main seal. So I might have to grab a friend and have them help me pull it off so we can service that leak, because we know that it's leaking from the bell housing there. Another thing I want to mention too is the ABS unit. We're going to have to transfer over at some point because they're different between the all-wheel drive and the rear-wheel drive cars. So that's going to conclude our video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and if you have any questions about pulling engines on these cars at home, go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. As you can see, it's pretty basic. As long as you get everything disconnected from the drivetrain itself, you're able to pull the engine out with the subframe, and using the dolly method that I have here, we're able to manipulate the drivetrain and move it around so that when we're ready to swap it into the next car, we're able to do so. I really enjoy this style of removing the motors, and it's really visual as well. You guys get to see it while it's out. So if you have any recommendations on service that I should be doing or mods you want to see or anything about this motor, be sure to let me know down in the comments below. But as always, I hope everyone has an awesome day. Go ahead and leave a like or a comment down below, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new and you haven't yet. And as always, we will see you in the next video.